So, for some context here of what Avengers Arena was, this was a series that took place prior to Secret Wars. I find that in a lot of recent descriptions of Marvel, that where it sits in relation to Secret Wars is important because there's a lot of continuity before and after, and Secret Wars itself is probably a big topic to go into. But Avengers Arena was a series that kind of when it was initially announced, there was almost I don't want to say backlash, but a lot of rumbling, a lot of uncomfortable rumbling, and it came from multiple sources. The first is that it was advertised and promoted kind of with no illusions that it was going to be parroting it. It was going to be taking its cues from a Japanese film called Battle Royale. And if you haven't seen that film, it's, in a nutshell, it's kind of a cult classic where the government takes students, basically a classroom, and puts them on an island. And then it's a fight to the death among the students, with the surviving student, surviving and being rewarded. But the intention is to really be a character study of how how students can, who are, in theory innocent, how they immediately devolve, kind of Lord of the Flies style. I mean, the concept of the plot is not a new one. It is, the playing with the idea that kids who are supposed to be innocent and naive can turn to their darker, baser instincts very quickly if pushed. And so that was what Battle Royale was. Also, some themes in Hunger Games, that kind of thing. The idea of kids fighting to the death, and for whatever reason, has always been an attractive concept in Hollywood and in movies, because it really just it sticks the you don't see it coming, the kind of the horror and the dangerous, bothersome feeling of watching this go down. So Avengers Arena promoted this was the idea that we're going to have kids and they're going to kill each other, and there will be one winner. And initially, I think the initial criticism was, this is derivative. Why are you copying this stuff? This is a blatant copy of Battle Royale. Marvel, to their credit, and Dennis Hopeless did not shy away from the fact that the Battle Royale was a big influencer in the title. I think, unlike a lot of things, there wasn't this hiding of where the source material was. It was what you see is what you get. And they promote it as really like, I hope you're not attached to any of these kids because bad things are going to happen. And that was the second part of the outrage, or not outrage is the wrong word, but the fan disagreement. The nobody wanted this. Very similar to the feeling you get on Heroes in Crisis. It had a very similar, nobody was asking for this, because the characters that were promoted were a lot of fan favorite characters, and in many cases, several of them had been built up in Avengers Academy, or Avengers the Initiative. There were a lot of characters in there that fans had really grown to like, that were kind of new generation. I think both Marvel and DC at various times will try and introduce new characters in the hopes of, finding that new IP that they can really get behind. Sometimes it works organically. Sometimes they really like force the issue for a while. Sometimes both happen. I think, Miss Marvel is an example of a character that was had some organic success, where the initial comics were popular and people liked it, and it was something new, and there was a lot of appreciation. Very similar, I think, to Miles Morales, and kind of the initial response that the character got. And then that transitioned a little bit to, I don't know if it was just an impatience with how popular the character was getting, or a desire to just really slam home that marketing, that that push for the character, and they start rebooting the series and promoting it more and more, and suddenly this character showing up in all the comics, and then they kind of overplay their hand a little bit, and then kind of do the, what's wrong? What, you guys don't like new characters? What's wrong with you? But it's like, no, lots of people like this new character. The new character was popular. Spider-Gwen, is another example of, you had a character that people kind of liked and thought was interesting, and then you overdid it. You just beat us all over the head with this character too quick, and then now there's a little bit of a backlash. So at any rate, Avengers Arena promoted a bunch of characters that were well liked, and then in that same promotion was like, and we're going to kill off all of them but one. And it just was, it was ghoulish. People were, they, nobody wants this. Hey, we actually, with a couple of these characters, we actually liked what you did. We liked we liked this idea. Can you not kill them all off? Because we think you're onto something here. And then the comic came out, but a lot of people are like, no, no, this is just, Marvel's not going to kill off kids. That's crazy talk. You know, maybe a couple of them die, but it's the ones that you don't recognize, the ones who are created new for this series. They're not going to do anything crazy. And then issue number one came out, and right out the gate, which was intentional, they kill off Metal, which was one of the characters that people were liking and had just kind of gotten to a happier spot by getting into a relationship with Hazmat, and just the two characters fit each other based on their powers. It fit, and you immediately kind of murder this character off, and you murder him off like very casually. There's no big sacrifice. It was just a kind of flick of the wrist, and Arcade kills Metal, and you also have Arcade, which was being elevated to a bigger tier villain, and with some powers that the character hadn't had before in kind of a murder world situation. So on one hand, this is what villains do. They kill people, and they are sick, and I've talked about before. It's better when villains are a threat. On the other hand, it's kind of, when it's at the cost of a bunch of kind of new and being developed characters. I mean, you look at the Avengers Arena kids, the ones who are in that series, and you say, hey, there are actually a bunch of kind of original, earned it concepts in here of male characters, female characters, lots of diverse characters, and some really kind of interesting things go on. You had a gay character. You had some people have called one of the female characters who wound up being kind of a villain, a trans character, but it wasn't. It was like there's a boy and a girl crammed into the same body with different personalities, more like Legion, less like, I wouldn't really call that a trans character, but I mean, whatever. Whoever wants to claim whatever, I guess. But the series went on for into the teens of issues, and then it immediately spawned another series called Avengers Undercover, where the survivors, a handful of survivors, go looking for payback with Arcade down in the kind of underground villain community. The Avengers Arena sold well. It sold well out the gate, and then the shock death of the first issue kept the sales to kind of carry for a little while. And then when it was clear that the death rate was going to slow down a little bit, and we were going to kind of mosey around and just kind of build the discomfort, then the sales started to drop, and it was relaunched / rebooted as Avengers Undercover, and that series just never got out of the starting gate. It for whatever reason, it just didn't go where it needed to go. Some really nice artwork in Avengers Arena, and for some of and in Avengers Undercover to some extent. There was some nice things going on there. Kev Walker did some of the comic, and there was some interesting stuff. But it was, unfortunately, it's one of those comics that was really Marvel's Heroes in Crisis, of an event that nobody really wanted. They did it anyway. It certainly sold some, and it wound up kind of cleaning up / scrubbing a lot of the Avengers Academy characters and some of the work that had been done there. Confusing. I think confusing is the word I've always put for it. People ask me, what do you think of this? This is clearly a cash in on death and other kind of more disturbing story elements. And it's, the short answer is sad. I think sad is a good way to put it. It's sad because I think the new characters that were coming along in Avengers Academy were really starting to pick up steam, and you could see them making that leap, that transition into the broader Marvel universe, and being seen more places, and fit in on teams, and kind of could, some characters you could grow with. And then we're kind of chucked away for a 16, 18 issue limited series ultimately. I mean, that's not a limited series, but a year and a half of comics. And then, you know, nothing really is. You had Avengers Undercover, and then he kind of shuffled a few of these characters back to where they belong. You've got some, show back up in Runaways. You have others that went into one of them showing up. Hazmat showed up in Captain Marvel. X-23, of course, has her own book. That's the success story coming into Avengers Arena, and out of Avengers Arena, that character was always going to have more growth. But nothing really came out of any of these characters. They had a good batch, and the characters who didn't show up in the book, Finesse and some of the others that didn't actually appear, they just kind of vanished, and it kind of killed off the momentum of a kind of next generation Marvel book. It just didn't go anywhere, and then then Champions would come along a few years later, and we'll give it a shot with Champions. And you kind of, if you think back on what the world would have looked like if you had Avengers Academy, and then you had a couple of them graduate and be part of the Avengers, the Mark Waid run where Nova and Miles Morales and Miss Marvel were suddenly on the team, and they introduced the new Wasp. Um, if if you would have just gone from Avengers Academy into that series and had the Champions with a kind of bigger roster, bigger supporting cast, kind of copying what the Avengers would become, where you have a lot of these youth superheroes there on the bench, ready to kind of step up and be part of that series. I think you would have had. I think you would have had a stronger Champions. I think you would have had a stronger base that this stuff could have lifted off for, because I think that when the lifespan of these comics are 2 to 3 years total of history, and then you kind of start to demolish, scrub, wipe it all clean, and start over again, it's you lose a lot in that process. As I mentioned before, continuity and history are your strengths. It's stuff it's like putting cash in the bank. It's an investment you can then draw on and get some value out of. But when you're constantly just kind of scrubbing it clean and starting over, you lose a lot of that value. So Avengers Arena, I'm not a fan. I mean, as you can tell in this review, it's again some nice artwork. I mean, in theory, nothing wrong with the storytelling. There's a lot of good character moments in the book, and Hopeless did a remarkable job of creating some brand new characters, and over the course of basically a year, getting some people to care about them. But then, kind of made all the more sad by the fact that then we had to kill a bunch of them off. We had to make it, kind of hopeless and bloody, and then go into Avengers Undercover, which was kind of just a mess of a series of, do these kids who are on the edge go bad? Unfortunately, Avengers Academy was really doing a good job of telling that story already, and we wiped it clean so we could tell that story again in a less subtle way with those two series. So kind of missed opportunities. I think that's an example of hey, nobody really wanted this, and hey, maybe some things in pop culture like Battle Royale or Hunger Games, I get that those are popular in the theater, especially Hunger Games was doing well in the theater right at that time, but maybe you don't need to copy it. Maybe you keep going with what you had. You had something good, and we went for a stunt. We hurt. I mean, we got a slight sales bump, but then it trickled away into nothing. So, what did we really gain? Anyway, classic case of taking the bird in the hand and chucking it in the bin in favor of a shinier bird you don't have yet. Hey, what do you think? Were you a fan of the series? Was this one of those cases where you lost a lot of hope and you felt like Marvel went on the wrong track, or am I completely off base? It was an important part of Avengers history, and you enjoyed the story for what it was. Both answers are fine. Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, get notified, and follow me on social media, Comic Perch on Twitter. Thanks for listening.